I transformed my health and lost 130 pounds in the process by using BioData to run experiments on myself, and I'm sharing the data in full detail with you here. Welcome, friends and foes, to a very personal data devotional. I'm Luciano Pesci, the founder and CEO of Emperitas and Nexum, and while I am a PhD, I am not an MD. What follows is just my personal experience backed up with a lot of data collected from multiple devices over the last 3 to 5 years. The problem that we're covering today is health and data, specifically mine. In 2020, I faced a health crisis that I have successfully navigated largely by using BioData. I'm only going to hit the highlights and the low points of my story. If you want to hear that full transformation story, I've recorded it on my personal YouTube channel, the link's here below. But I spent the first 4 decades of my life fat. Weight and health were highly correlated in the story of those 4 decades. Looking back, I see the slow growth of these problems, but in late 2019, early 2020, it hit a critical point. The thing that really broke me was sleep. My general inflammation, but especially in my head, had gotten so bad that I couldn't sleep throughout the night without waking up and doing multiple nasal rinses. And once my sleep fell apart, everything else went very fast. I had a near rock bottom experience in the doctor's office, committed to change, and started to do the work. But the health slide continued. This may have been the most frustrating period of my entire life. But unlike the previous 4 decades, this time I stuck with it, I pushed harder. I didn't change the plan, I doubled down on it. My health improved, my sleep improved, my skin improved, heartburn went away. Chronic heartburn that I had dealt with for decades disappeared. At this point, I was doing a lot of labs under the supervision of doctors. Virtually all of those metrics improved. And I'm saying virtually because I want to give myself an out. I can't remember if there was one that was bad. This is also when I got very serious about collecting data and A/B testing what was or wasn't working. And we'll walk through that in the dashboard in a moment. But BioData was the key in this process to figure out what was or wasn't working for me as an individual. Population averages are great. Trends are great. That's information you should look at and should understand. But at least in my case, population averages weren't what I was after. My lived experience and improving my lived experience was what I was after. And for that, I allowed the data and the doctors to guide me. For the first 40 years of my story, I thought I was an outlier, but now I'm worried that I'm just a leading indicator. I'm seeing other people suffer similar symptoms, but on a 5 to 10 year lag. I've summarized here in words my lived experience and what comes across through the data. Whether I'm an outlier or a leading indicator is going to be proven by time. Either way, there are peculiarities to my current lifestyle. I fast, I sweat, I consume a lot of salt and meat, I recover, and then I repeat this process day after day. These are the independent variables that I have found that drive my health outcomes. And I'll show you those changes in the dashboard data in a moment. Once I got invested in my own change, I knew that data was going to be a critical part. I've used the term now a few times, BioData, let me define it. It is information that comes from any kind of medical lab, biometric wearable device, app, manually logged or aggregated, which measures something about your health. While that may seem like a very broad net, all of this information can be classified into 3 dimensions. This is the trinity that I look at: mind, body, and spirit. So let's connect the problem of BioData to what I did for myself to generate, aggregate, and then analyze this information on the way to introducing Hyraethia, who promises to do this 1,000 times better. Generating the data is the easy part. There is a huge and growing number of wearable devices for you to choose from. Many of these are very cost effective. I opted for these 4 as my primary data generating devices: the Garmin Venue, specifically the first generation, the Oura Ring, Google Fit on my Android phone, and the Whoop strap. I do have additional devices. The most important that's missing from this list is my WISE scale, from which I get 13 different biodata fields related to my body composition. There is some data overlap in these devices. For example, all 4 of these on the screen will produce step data. Each of them will do workout data. 3 of these 4 can do sleep data. But there are also some metrics that are proprietary to each of these. Often those are some kind of calculated score or some kind of net metric that they're making from other measurements. You do not need multiple devices. If you have a smartphone, you already have one biodata generating device. If you wanted to add one more, I would recommend a Garmin watch. I opted for multiple devices so that I would have redundancy in data and I would be able to compare the similar metrics across devices. But as I said, if I was going to fall back on just one, it'd be Garmin. After 2 to 3 of these devices, you become a walking data warehouse. And that's a little bit of a misnomer because while you have access to all of this information, it's in little isolated pockets in silos. You have to go to each platform, log into their platform through the app or through an online portal, and then explore the fraction of the data that they're sharing with you in a very controlled, predetermined fashion. I did not like this, so I searched for a way to get all of my information into one system. What I found was that because I'm an Android user, Google Fit could aggregate about 40% of my information. Everything else had to remain in its silo outside of Google Fit. The second link on this slide shows you the different data sources that I have, when they came online, and what metrics I'm getting from them. But in the end, I would consider this a failed effort. I was never able to get all of my information through the existing solutions into one place. So I had to step back, go to each silo one by one, navigate their very different user experiences for getting access to the information, and then put it all together myself in one place using Power BI. The link on this slide will take you to the dashboard that we're about to explore, but all of the change that I've been talking about, all the experimentation that was done, was captured in this data for the last 2 years at a minimum, some of it going back as far as 5 years. I'm not going to talk through every detail of every pattern in the data that we're going to explore. Instead, I'm just going to walk you through how to navigate it, set you loose, and if you have questions, you can post them in the comments. I'd be happy to answer them. All right, let me move out of the way so I'm not obstructing some of the data. You're now looking at the live Power BI dashboard with data through the end of November 2023. Like with the other Power BI dashboards that we've shared, you can navigate each of the pages here in the center. You'll see that I have all my weight, my WISE scale weight. The difference being that the chart you're looking at right now shows all weight measurements, including those that were registered at the doctor's office. The second page only shows the measurements that come from the WISE scale directly. I have my Google Fit step data. This is aggregated monthly. I have my Garmin activities, and I'll just use this to jump to the next one, my Whoop activities, which if you spend some time comparing these, you may ask yourself, why don't they match? This is not a data anomaly. This is not a missing information anomaly. This is a data generation issue. I log everything in Whoop that I log in Garmin, but not vice versa. And the things that I log in Whoop that I don't log in Garmin, they're typically low-calorie activities. So these are things like red light sessions, sauna. They're not hour-long walk sessions. They're not strength training. I also have my daily calories consumed, my daily macros, which you'll see are about 50% fat, and I have the details of what I have eaten every single day going back for 2 years. I think this is the most interesting of the data that I've collected. It has certainly been the most predictive in the A/B testing that I have done. And you can look at the aggregate here, which is showing all 2 years at once, or you can go day by day and just pick a day, like Tuesday, November 28th, and see the composition by calories of what I've eaten. And this brings up another interesting observation. In the aggregate, it looks like I'm the punchline of an Italian joke, and that I'm consuming a lot of olive oil, which I do. But if you look at any one day, you'll see that olive oil is not, by calorie, the largest thing that I eat. It's usually meat. And what's happening here is that the different cuts of meat are spread out across cuts and animal types. But if you total up calories, the primary thing that I get calories from is meat. And then after that, you can see it's a lot of fruit, vegetables, it's all whole foods. The most processed things that I eat at this point are maple syrup and olive oil, both of which I have to do due diligence on before I buy them because of food fraud, the maple mafia. Finally, I have the thing that drove me into the doctor, my sleep data. You're seeing a lot of low scores, especially clustered in late 2022. I was still having some sleep problems at that point, but most of these were being triggered by exposure, accidental often, to foods. You've seen that that's slowed down a lot throughout 2023, and any low value in 2023 is not the result of a reaction to food and allergies. It is because of work. But overall, this has been trending up. You can go dig into it right now. All of the data that exists in this dashboard is isolated still. Nothing that I get from Aura has been shared with Whoop or vice versa. As I pointed out on the previous slide, I had to take a step back and aggregate all of this information myself. I generated it, that was easy. Now I had to aggregate it. That took quite a bit of time, and now I'm on to analyzing. If you'd like to see me analyze this data across devices in a descriptive manner in a future data devotional, I'd be happy to do that. Putting together this solution, generating, aggregating, and analyzing all of this information has been a huge sink of my time. Not so much generating, but definitely the aggregating and then the analyzing has taken enormous amounts of my time. Far too much to expect other people to do this. And that's unfortunate because there is power in this data. And that's not just power for me, this is power for anyone. One final word on this dashboard. I plan to infrequently update it over the coming weeks and months as I transition all of my information into Hyraethia. Speaking of Hyraethia, I'm very excited to introduce them as another client featured in the Data Devotional series. Hyraethia is interesting because it promises to improve on the 3 core parts of my problem. Pulling in the data regularly, handling the transformations like normalization, cleaning, and converting, and through their combination of structural equation modeling and deep learning, they're promising to provide insights on a level that I could never do myself, at least not while maintaining everything else in my life. Hyraethia decodes wearable device data to empower individuals to reconfigure their life through bio-individualized insights. Right now, they're accepting alpha generation users for their MVP, and those users will get lifetime access. So if this is something that even remotely interests you, I recommend you go to this website, hyraethia.com, and you register for free. How does it work? Well, it does everything that I've been covering to this point. This really is the solution. I, as the user, grant access to Hyraethia to each of my data sources. Hyraethia then pulls those data sources and all of their biodata into the Hyraethia cloud platform. Within that cloud platform, they do all the transformations. They apply their BERNS algorithm to do the predictive modeling. They store the results in a database, which I can access through PowerBI, finally getting a single source of truth. If this visual looks familiar, thank you for watching the Data Journey episodes. It should look familiar. This is Nexum. Full disclosure, Nexum donated our data ecosystem solution codebase to Hyraethia so that they could get their MVP up and going, which we did through a program that we have to support promising entrepreneurs. We have received no money for this. We have received no ownership for this. So while I'm not an investor, I am an enthusiastic user. Keep your own biodata progress going by looking through my Power BI dashboard and joining me as one of the alpha generation users for Hyraethia. And I'll see you at the next one.